In the heart of New York City, where the facade of perfection is embodied by towering skyscrapers and dazzling lights, lie secrets that can shatter even the strongest facades. When Sarah Martin, a brilliant lawyer with impressive achievements and impeccable looks, uncovers a stunning revelation about her husband's past, she is plunged into a world of betrayal, intrigue, and self-discovery. In her quest for truth and healing, Sarah embarks on a journey that will challenge her perception of herself and what it truly means to be a woman in a world where illusions replace reality. In the bustling heart of New York City, where the relentless pursuit of success never sleeps, Sarah Martin stood as a beacon of achievement and grace. Her life, as viewed by her peers and the public, was the epitome of perfection. A high-profile lawyer at one of the city's most esteemed law firms, Sarah navigated the treacherous waters of corporate law with a poise and command that both intimidated and inspired. The morning sun cast a golden glow across Sarah's spacious office on the 50th floor, overlooking a stunning panorama of Manhattan. The walls, lined with her degrees and various awards, reflected a career built on relentless hard work and sharp intellect. Today, like every day, began with a steaming cup of coffee and a meticulous review of her schedule by her efficient assistant, Emily. Your 9 a.m. with the Hendersons is confirmed, and the deposition materials for the Thompson case have been prepped and loaded on your tablet, Emily reported with a crisp efficiency that matched Sarah's own. Thank you, Emily. And the dinner reservation for tonight? Sarah inquired, her thoughts briefly shifting to the personal. All set for 7 p.m. at Marcel's. They confirmed the corner table you prefer, Emily responded, ticking off the details on her tablet. Satisfied, Sarah turned her attention to the files before her. Yet, as she tried to focus on the legal jargon, her mind wandered to the evening ahead. It was her 5th wedding anniversary with Michael, her husband, who had recently been more distracted than usual. She planned a special dinner, hoping it would rekindle the warmth that had lately seemed dimmed. As the morning wore on, Sarah juggled client meetings, court calls, and legal briefings with a masterful command. Her colleagues often wondered if she ever faltered under pressure, her demeanor always calm, her outfits impeccably tailored, and her dark hair flawlessly styled. Lunch was a brief affair at her desk, a salad and sparkling water, while she reviewed a contract. It was then that her phone buzzed with a message from Michael. Expecting a romantic note or a simple check-in, Sarah's heart lifted as she swiped to open the message. But it wasn't Michael's usual message. It was a picture, likely sent to her by mistake, showing Michael with a woman she didn't recognize, both laughing intimately over drinks at a bar Sarah had never heard him mention. The timestamp showed it was from last night. A cold wave of confusion washed over her. There must be a reasonable explanation, she reassured herself, trying to suppress the rising tide of unease. Michael often went out with clients, and perhaps this was just an innocent business meeting. Yet, something about the woman's gaze, how she looked at Michael, seemed personal, too personal. With a deep breath, Sarah placed her phone face down and tried to refocus on her work. But the image haunted her, the laughter and the intimacy it depicted echoing in her mind, unsettling the foundation of trust and partnership she thought they had built. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Sarah's usual sharp focus was dulled by the whispers of doubt and the unspoken questions that lingered on her mind. As the city lights began to twinkle on, heralding the approach of evening, Sarah knew that tonight's dinner would be about more than celebration. It would be a search for truth, however unsettling it might be. As she gathered her things and prepared to leave the office, Sarah steeled herself for the conversation ahead. Tonight, she needed answers, and she would get them. The perfect facade of her life had begun to crack, and what lay beneath was uncertain and frightening. Yet, Sarah Martin was no stranger to challenges, and she would face this one as she had all others, with courage and a determination to find the truth. The evening air was crisp as Sarah stepped out of her office building, the bustling sounds of New York City wrapping around her like a familiar blanket. Her mind, however, was far from comforted. The image of Michael laughing with the unknown woman replayed in her mind, each loop fraying the edges of her composure. As she slid into the back of the cab she had hailed, Sarah tried to piece together her thoughts. "Marcel's, please," she instructed the driver, her voice steadier than she felt. The ride gave her a few moments of solitude to organize her approach for the evening. She couldn't let emotions dictate her actions, she needed clarity and facts. Upon arriving at Marcel's, A quaint and usually comforting spot they frequented, Sarah spotted Michael already at the table, his smile bright as he caught sight of her. He stood, greeting her with a warm kiss which she returned, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "You look beautiful, Sarah," Michael complimented, pulling out her chair. "Thank you," she responded, smoothing her dress as she sat down. "How was your day?" "Busy as ever," he chuckled, signaling the waiter to bring over the champagne he had pre-ordered. "But better now that I'm here with you." Sarah nodded, watching as the waiter filled their glasses. She took a sip, the bubbles sharp against her tongue. "Michael, who was that woman in the picture you sent me today?" The question hung in the air, a delicate pause following. Michael's smile faltered, his eyes briefly clouding with confusion. "Picture? I think you must be mistaken, I didn't send any, it was a mistake, I assume. You two seem quite close," Sarah cut in, her tone even but firm, her phone retrieved from her purse to show him the photo. Michael took the phone, his frown deepening as he looked at the image. "Oh, that." "Sarah, I can explain," he said quickly, handing back the phone. "That's just Claire from the marketing team. We were discussing a potential client, at a bar?" "With that kind of familiarity?" Sarah's voice was calm, but her heart raced with a mix of fear and anger. "It was purely professional. Sometimes we have to meet clients in a more relaxed setting, you know this," Michael replied, his tone attempting casual reassurance but his hands betrayed him, fidgeting with his napkin. Sarah observed him, her trained eye picking up on the slight signs of his discomfort. "I believe in professionalism, Michael. But that didn't look professional." "There's nothing professional about secrecy," Michael sighed, setting down his glass. "I didn't want to worry you over nothing. It was just drinks, Sarah. It means nothing." The rest of the dinner passed in a strained silence, punctuated by attempts at normal conversation. Despite Michael's reassurances, the seeds of doubt had been sown. Sarah's appetite waned as her mind raced, analyzing every word, every gesture for signs she had previously missed. Back at their apartment, the facade of a perfect evening crumbled entirely. Sarah found herself lying awake long after Michael had fallen asleep, staring at the ceiling. The image of the photo burned behind her eyes, not just for the intimacy it showed but for the realization that her life might not be as perfect as she had believed. By the time dawn painted the sky with streaks of orange and pink, Sarah had made a decision. She couldn't let this go. She needed to know the full extent of Michael's secrets. Today would be the day she would start digging deeper. She would begin by visiting the bar from the photo, hoping to gather her own insights into what was really going on. As she dressed for work, her reflection in the mirror showed a woman determined to find the truth, no matter how much it might hurt. The cracks in her perfect life had appeared, and now she was ready to face whatever lay beyond them. The city was just beginning to stir as Sarah set out that morning, her usual route to the office diverted. Today, she was driven by a need for answers that overshadowed her professional responsibilities. The bar from the photo, the Velvet Lounge, was her first stop. It was unusual for Sarah to skip the morning's flurry of activity at the firm, but the gnawing uncertainty about Michael's fidelity had left her with little choice. The Velvet Lounge was quiet at this hour, the remnants of last night's revelry yet to be cleared. Sarah approached the bartender, a young man setting up for the day. "Excuse me," she began, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside, "I'm looking for some information about last night." The bartender eyed her cautiously. "Depends on what you need. I see a lot of faces here." Sarah slid a photo across the bar, the one of Michael and the woman. "Have you seen these two recently?" The bartender glanced at the photo and nodded slowly. "Yeah, they were here last night. Seemed cozy. Anything else?" A tightness formed in Sarah's chest, but she maintained her composure. "How often do they come here?" "Can't say. Seen 'em a few times over the past couple of months. Always together, always that same table in the corner." Sarah thanked him, her mind racing as she left the bar. The pieces were beginning to form a picture she dreaded to see complete. She needed more proof, more understanding of the depth of Michael's deceit. Her next stop was the firm where Michael worked. She had always respected professional boundaries, never dropping by unannounced. Today, however, demanded exceptions. At the reception, she asked to see Michael, only to be informed he hadn't arrived yet. Surprised, she thanked the receptionist and turned to leave, when she spotted Michael's personal assistant, Jenna, arriving. "Jenna, could I have a word, please?" Sarah asked, guiding her aside. "Of course, Mrs. Martin. Is everything okay?" Jenna's concern was evident. "I was just wondering if Michael mentioned any special meetings or trips he had planned? Anything out of the ordinary?" Sarah probed, watching Jenna's reactions closely. Jenna hesitated, then sighed. "I shouldn't really say, but he's been taking personal days off. Said it was for a project, but he didn't specify. Asked me to keep it quiet." Sarah nodded, her suspicions growing as she pieced together Michael's increasingly mysterious behavior. "Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate your honesty." Leaving the building, Sarah felt the weight of her findings pressing down on her. It wasn't just random suspicions anymore, there was a pattern, a trail of secrecy that Michael had hoped to keep hidden from her. Back at her office, the day passed in a blur. Sarah was physically present but mentally miles away, lost in thoughts and conjectures about the implications of her discoveries. Her trust in Michael, once unshakable, now felt as fragile as glass. That evening, as she returned home, Sarah was determined to confront Michael. She found him in the kitchen, cooking dinner, seemingly oblivious to the storm brewing within her. "Michael, we need to talk," Sarah said, her voice calm but firm as she set down her purse and turned to face him. Michael looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "Of course, what's on your mind?" "It's about your recent personal days and your meetings at the Velvet Lounge." "I know about them, Michael. I know about Claire. This can't go on any longer. I need the truth, all of it." The kitchen fell silent, save for the low hum of the refrigerator. Michael's expression shifted from surprise to resignation as he realized the depth of Sarah's knowledge. "Sarah, he started, but Sarah raised her hand to stop him. "No, Michael. No more lies. Just tell me everything." As Michael began to speak, Sarah braced herself for the truths that would emerge, knowing that whatever came next, the path forward would be one of healing and self-discovery, no matter how painful the revelations might be. The silence that hung between Sarah and Michael after her demand for the truth was palpable. Michael took a deep breath, his eyes not meeting hers, and began to unravel the web of deceit that had entangled their lives. "It started as nothing serious," Michael confessed, his voice low. "Meetings that ran late, casual drinks that became more frequent. I didn't plan for any of this to happen." His words felt hollow, each one a hammer to the trust they had built over the years. Sarah listened, her heart sinking with each admission, yet her resolve to understand the full scope of his betrayal kept her questions coming. Why? Why her? Why this deception? Michael shook his head, a mix of frustration and regret crossing his features. "I don't know, Sarah. It was an escape, a mistake. I never wanted to hurt you." The conversation stretched late into the night, with Michael revealing more about his relationship with Claire and the lies he had woven to keep it concealed. As he spoke, Sarah felt a strange detachment, as if she were a lawyer cross-examining a witness, collecting facts, pushing emotions to the side to be dealt with later. After Michael had exhausted his confessions and retreated to the guest room, Sarah found herself alone with her thoughts, unable to sleep. She wandered through the quiet house until she found herself in Michael's study, a room she seldom entered, respecting it as his private space. Driven by a newfound need to uncover all remnants of his deceit, Sarah began to sift through his papers. It was then that she stumbled upon an old leather-bound diary tucked away in the bottom drawer of his desk. Her hands trembled as she opened it, the pages filled with Michael's handwriting, documenting thoughts and events she had never known. Page by page, Sarah absorbed the words. The diary was not just a log of meetings and mundane daily activities, it contained Michael's innermost thoughts and feelings about his affair with Claire. The entries revealed a man torn by guilt yet captivated by the thrill of secrecy. It detailed not just the timeline of his deception but also his justification for it, painting a picture of a man Sarah realized she no longer truly knew. As dawn broke, Sarah sat surrounded by the scattered contents of the drawer, the diary open in her lap. The man she had loved and trusted had become a stranger, and with this realization came a profound sense of loss and betrayal. The morning light brought clarity and a decisive resolve. Sarah knew what she needed to do next. It wasn't just about confronting Michael or dealing with the immediate fallout of his infidelity. She needed to understand herself, to figure out her path forward in this new reality that had been forced upon her. With the diary as her painful guide, Sarah began to plan her next steps. She would not let this betrayal define her or dictate her future. Instead, she would use it as a catalyst for her own transformation and healing. The journey would be hers alone, a path forged by her choices and actions from here on. As she set the diary aside, Sarah felt a surge of empowerment amidst the chaos of her emotions. She was hurt, undoubtedly, but not broken. She would rise from this, learn from it, and ultimately, she would find a way to heal. The days following the discovery of Michael's diary were a blur of emotion and activity for Sarah. She moved through her responsibilities at the law firm mechanically, her mind constantly drifting to the revelations that had upended her life. Her colleagues noticed a change in her demeanor. Once sharp and commanding, she now seemed distant, her usual keen insight tempered by a pervasive distraction. Sarah knew she could not continue this way. Her professional life, once a source of pride and fulfillment, now felt like an unbearable weight. She needed time, space, and solitude to process her emotions and decide her future. After much deliberation, she approached her senior partner to request a leave of absence. "Sarah, is everything all right?" "This is unlike you," her mentor, Diane, asked with concern, her keen eyes observing Sarah closely. "I need some time to deal with personal issues," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I assure you, I intend to return. I just need some space to heal and come back stronger." Diane nodded, understanding yet clearly worried. "Take all the time you need, Sarah. We'll manage here. Your well-being is important." With her professional affairs in order, Sarah turned her attention to the personal. She spent long nights in the guest room, now her temporary sanctuary, surrounded by books on healing and personal growth. Yet, the answers she sought seemed just out of reach, the path forward obscured by pain and betrayal. One evening, amidst her research, she stumbled upon a blog about solo travel and self-discovery. The stories spoke of transformation through travel, of landscapes that healed and experiences that renewed. A spark of inspiration ignited within her. If she was to find herself again, perhaps she needed to step completely away from the life that had become so entangled with Michael's deception. Sarah began to plan a journey across the country, a solo expedition to places she had always wanted to visit but never had the time or opportunity to explore. She mapped out a route that would take her from the bustling streets of New York to the serene mountains of the West, the sun-drenched beaches of the coast, and the quaint small towns that dotted the landscape in between. With each destination added to her itinerary, Sarah felt a weight lifting. She was not running away from her problems but walking towards healing. She booked her accommodations, packed her bags, and prepared her home for a long absence. Michael, now a distant figure in the house they had once shared, watched her preparations in silent confusion and regret. The morning of her departure arrived with a crisp, clear dawn. Sarah loaded her car, her heart heavy yet hopeful. As she turned to lock the front door, she paused, looking back at the home that had harbored both her happiest and most painful memories. She took a deep breath, feeling the final threads of her old life loosen. This journey was hers alone, no expectations, no roles to fulfill, just Sarah and the open road. As she slid behind the wheel and started the engine, a sense of freedom enveloped her. She was not just driving away from her past but toward a new horizon, one that promised rediscovery and, hopefully, peace. As the cityscape receded in her rearview mirror, Sarah felt the first genuine smile in weeks grace her lips. The road ahead was uncertain, and the journey would undoubtedly bring its own challenges, but she was ready to face them. Ready to find herself again, beyond the shadows of betrayal. As Sarah's car hummed along the interstate, the familiar skyscrapers of New York City gave way to sprawling landscapes and open skies. The further she drove, the more she felt the layers of her old self peel away, leaving room for introspection and the raw, uncharted territories of her emotions. Her first stop was a small mountain town in the Adirondacks, known for its breathtaking views and tranquil environment. Sarah checked into a cozy cabin nestled among towering pines. The crisp mountain air was a balm to her weary spirit, and she spent days hiking the rugged trails, each step helping to clear the fog of confusion and hurt that had clouded her mind. One evening, as she sat by a crackling fire at a local inn, an elderly woman joined her at the table. They struck up a conversation, and Sarah found herself sharing more than she had intended: her journey, the betrayal, and her quest for healing. The woman listened intently, nodding with understanding. "My dear," the woman finally said, her eyes reflecting the firelight, "sometimes, the hardest journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations. You are brave to face this head-on. Remember, what feels like the end is often just the beginning." Her words resonated with Sarah, embedding themselves deep in her heart. She left the mountains with a renewed sense of purpose, each mile traveled adding a stitch to the fabric of her new life. Next, Sarah drove to the bustling city of Chicago. The change from the quiet mountains to the vibrant cityscape was jarring, yet exhilarating. Chicago's energy was infectious, and Sarah found herself drawn to the art and culture that painted the city's broad streets. She visited museums, attended a live jazz night, and walked along the bustling shores of Lake Michigan, each experience painting a stroke of color back into her life. It was in Chicago that Sarah met Alex, a fellow traveler with a similar thirst for life's deeper meanings. They shared stories over deep dish pizza, and Alex spoke of his own experiences with loss and redemption. "You're not alone in this," Alex assured her. "Everyone has their battles, their demons to face. But it's how we come out of those battles that defines us." Inspired by their exchange, Sarah continued her journey with a lighter heart, driving next to the wide, open spaces of the American Midwest. The landscape rolled by in waves of green and gold, and she spent nights under starlit skies that seemed to hold the promise of infinite possibilities. In each place, Sarah collected memories and insights, like pebbles on a beach. She journaled fervently, her diary becoming a mosaic of experiences and reflections. With every entry, she felt a piece of her old self return, transformed and integrated into the woman she was becoming. As weeks turned into months, Sarah's journey took her to the sun-drenched valleys of California. Here, amidst the ancient redwoods and peaceful vineyards, she felt a profound connection to the earth and its timeless cycles of growth and renewal. One afternoon, while walking through a vineyard in Napa Valley, Sarah realized how far she had come. The pain of Michael's betrayal, once a sharp, incessant ache, had dulled to a faint echo. In its place was a newfound strength and a deep appreciation for her resilience and capacity to forgive, not necessarily Michael, but herself, for the self-doubt and the shadows she had let into her life. As the sun set over the vineyard, casting long shadows between the rows of grapevines, Sarah knew that her journey was far from over. But she was no longer the same woman who had driven out of New York City, burdened by betrayal and a broken heart. She was stronger, wiser, and more alive than she had ever been. With the California sun warming her face, Sarah looked forward to the road ahead, ready to embrace whatever adventures and challenges it might bring. Her journey of healing was turning into a journey of discovery, of a life rich with potential and the promise of new beginnings. As Sarah continued her journey through California, the landscapes shifted from the lush vineyards of Napa to the rugged cliffs and misty shores of the Pacific coast. Each new vista seemed to offer not just beauty, but insights and lessons that Sarah eagerly absorbed. Her heart, once heavy with betrayal, now beat with a rhythm of adventure and self-discovery. In a small coastal town, Sarah decided to take a few days to rest and reflect. She rented a small beachfront cottage, where the sound of the waves provided a soothing backdrop to her thoughts. During the day, she walked along the beach, letting the cool water wash over her feet, each wave smoothing away the remnants of her past hurts. One afternoon, while exploring a local market, Sarah met Maya, a painter who specialized in seascapes. They struck up a conversation about art and life, and Maya invited Sarah to her studio to see some of her work. As Sarah admired the canvases, awash with blues and greens that captured the ocean's ever-changing moods, Maya shared her own story of finding healing through her art. "I used to think that to move forward, I had to leave everything from my past behind," Maya explained, her brushstrokes confident and fluid. "But I've learned that it's about taking the past, learning from it, and letting it shape you into someone stronger. These paintings," she gestured around the studio, "they wouldn't exist if not for the storms I've weathered." Sarah felt a kinship with Maya, understanding that her own journey was not about erasing her past with Michael, but about transforming the pain into something meaningful. Inspired by Maya's words and the expressive beauty of her art, Sarah began to sketch again, a hobby she had abandoned in the busyness of her former life. As days turned into weeks, Sarah's sketches filled her journal, each drawing a testament to the places and people who had touched her life along the way. Her artistic expression grew alongside her internal healing, each sketch more confident and vibrant than the last. Leaving the coast behind, Sarah traveled inland to the Sierra Nevada, where the majestic mountains challenged her physically and spiritually. She took to hiking the trails, each ascent a literal and metaphorical climb towards understanding and acceptance. One crisp morning, as she reached the summit of a particularly challenging peak, Sarah stood alone with a vast expanse spread before her. The air was thin, and her breaths came heavily, but her spirit soared with a profound sense of accomplishment and freedom. It was here, amid the silent peaks, that Sarah truly felt the weight of her old fears and doubts lift. She realized that she had found what she had set out to seek, not just peace, but a deeper strength and a renewed passion for life. Her journey was not just about escaping the pain, it was about confronting it, learning from it, and using it to grow. Each person she met, each place she visited, taught her something valuable about resilience, about the capacity of the human heart to heal and to love again, even after betrayal. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Sarah felt a deep gratitude for the journey and for the unexpected lessons along the way. She knew that the road ahead would still hold challenges, but she now carried with her a toolkit of experiences, a gallery of memories, and a heart ready to embrace whatever came next. With a sense of completeness and anticipation, Sarah prepared to continue her journey, each step forward a testament to her transformation and the new life she was crafting with each passing day. The journey had taken Sarah from the bustling cities to the tranquil solitude of nature. Each place she visited added layers to her understanding and healing, weaving new threads into the fabric of her self-identity. As she drove towards the northern reaches where the aurora borealis was visible, a sense of anticipation grew within her. The natural phenomenon had always fascinated her, a spectacular display of nature's beauty and mystery. It felt like the perfect metaphor for the transformation she was undergoing, vivid, unpredictable, and awe-inspiring. Arriving at a small cabin she had rented for this part of her journey, Sarah prepared for the night ahead. The locals had told her that tonight was ideal for viewing the lights, clear and dark. As dusk fell, she wrapped herself in warm layers and set up a chair outside, her eyes fixed on the sky. The wait was quiet, the silence profound, broken only by the occasional rustle of wildlife. Sarah's mind, usually so full of thoughts and plans, settled into the peace of her surroundings. She reflected on her journey, the places she had seen, and the people she had met. Each had contributed to her healing, offering new perspectives and wisdom. Then, as the clock nudged towards midnight, the sky began to change. Streaks of green light danced across the stars, ribbons of purple and blue intertwining. The aurora borealis unfolded above her, a shifting mosaic of light. Sarah watched, breathless, feeling a connection to something larger than herself, something timeless and profound. It was in this moment of beauty and isolation that Sarah felt a shift within her. The pain and betrayal that had once seemed so all-consuming began to diminish, overshadowed by the vastness of the world and the beauty it held. She realized that her identity was not tied to another person or the failures of her past but was hers to shape and redefine. Inspired, Sarah returned to the cabin and for the first time in many weeks, she took out her own journal. She began to write, not about Michael or the pain, but about her experiences and revelations on the road. She wrote about the people who had touched her life, the landscapes that had soothed her soul, and the quiet strength she had found within herself. This act of writing became a nightly ritual, a way for Sarah to process her journey and document her transformation. Each entry was a step towards reclaiming her narrative, her voice growing stronger and more confident with each word. As the days passed and the time for her return approached, Sarah felt a profound gratitude for the journey she had undertaken. It was not just about escaping the turmoil of her past but about embracing her future with a renewed sense of purpose and self-awareness. The night before her departure, Sarah sat once more under the stars, her journal in her lap. She wrote about her hopes and dreams for the future, about the foundation she planned to establish to help other women navigate their paths through betrayal and recovery. She envisioned workshops, talks, and a community where stories and strengths could be shared. Closing her journal, Sarah looked up at the sky, now familiar and comforting. She knew that her journey of healing was not over, it was an ongoing process. But as she prepared to return to New York, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She was no longer the same woman who had driven out of the city, burdened by betrayal. She was stronger, wiser, and, most importantly, at peace with herself. The journey had taught her that while the path might change, the destination of self-discovery and peace was always within reach, as long as one kept moving forward. Sarah's return to New York City was marked by a mix of anticipation and apprehension. The skyline that had once represented her entire world now felt like just another chapter in her broader journey of self-discovery. As she drove through the familiar streets, the city seemed both changed and unchanged, mirroring the transformation within herself. Upon arriving at her home, the memories contained within its walls greeted her like echoes of a life once lived. Walking through the rooms, Sarah felt a detachment from the artifacts of her past life with Michael. They were remnants of a person she no longer was, a person defined by others' actions and expectations. In the days that followed, Sarah set about redefining her space, both physically and emotionally. She started by clearing out items that no longer served her, donating much of what she and Michael had shared. Each object released was a step towards reclaiming her environment and her independence. Professionally, Sarah returned to the law firm with a renewed focus and vigor. Her colleagues noticed a change in her demeanor. There was a new depth to her empathy, a sharper edge to her advocacy. Diane welcomed her back with open arms, expressing admiration for Sarah's resilience and strength. "Whatever you did on your time off, it's brought a new light to your eyes," Diane commented one afternoon. Sarah smiled, acknowledging the shift within herself. "I found parts of me I didn't know were lost, Diane. I'm ready to bring those parts into everything I do here." One of the most significant changes Sarah implemented upon her return was establishing a foundation dedicated to supporting women who had experienced betrayal and emotional trauma. Drawing from her own journey, she named it the New Dawn Foundation, symbolizing the fresh starts and new beginnings that each day holds. The foundation quickly gained traction, with Sarah using her legal expertise to offer workshops on rights and recovery, and her personal experience to provide support and counseling services. The response was overwhelming, with many women reaching out, eager to share their stories and find a community that understood their pain. Sarah also began to organize speaking engagements, sharing her story with larger audiences. Her talks were raw and honest, resonating with many who felt isolated in their struggles. She spoke not just of the betrayal but of the journey to reclaiming one's sense of self-worth and direction. It was during one of these talks that Sarah truly realized the impact of her work. After a session, a young woman approached her, her eyes brimming with tears. "Your story, it's like you were speaking directly to me. I felt so alone, but hearing you talk about your journey, it's given me hope." Sarah listened, offering words of encouragement and support, feeling a profound connection. Each story shared with her reinforced the importance of her work, fueling her passion and dedication to the foundation. As months turned into a year, Sarah found herself no longer defined by the past but inspired by the possibilities of the future. Her personal journey of healing had transformed into a broader mission, helping others navigate their paths through pain and rediscovery. Looking out over the city from her office window, Sarah felt a deep sense of fulfillment and peace. New York was no longer just the city of dreams, it was a city of renewal and resilience. And as she prepared for another speaking engagement, she knew that every word she spoke carried the weight of her experiences and the hope of helping others find their way through the darkness, just as she had. As the seasons changed and the leaves in Central Park shifted from green to gold, Sarah found herself reflecting on the incredible journey she had undertaken. The New Dawn Foundation had grown beyond her initial vision, becoming a beacon of hope and empowerment for many. Sarah's personal story of betrayal, healing, and resilience had inspired countless women to seek help and start their own journeys of recovery. On a crisp autumn evening, Sarah stood at the podium in a large conference room filled with attendees at a national women's empowerment conference. The audience was a diverse group of women from various backgrounds, each eager to learn and grow from the experiences shared. Sarah looked out over the crowd, her heart full of gratitude and purpose. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah began, her voice clear and confident, "I stand before you not just as a survivor of personal betrayal but as a testament to the power of transformation. Each of us here has faced challenges, some that seemed insurmountable. Yet, here we are, gathered together to support, empower, and uplift each other." The room filled with applause, and Sarah felt a surge of energy. She continued, "When I discovered the truth about my husband's infidelity, I felt as if my world had crumbled. But through that pain, I found a strength I never knew I had. I embarked on a journey that took me across the country, into the depths of my own heart and soul, and led me to create the New Dawn Foundation. Sarah shared her experiences, from the painful revelations to the transformative moments of her travels. She spoke of the people she met along the way, the lessons she learned, and how these experiences culminated in her work with the foundation. As we help others, we heal ourselves, Sarah declared. Creating a space where women can come together to share their stories and support each other has been one of the most fulfilling achievements of my life. The audience listened intently, moved by Sarah's authenticity and inspired by her resilience. After her talk, many approached her, sharing their own stories of struggle and recovery, thanking her for her courage and inspiration. As the conference came to a close, Sarah felt a profound sense of accomplishment and anticipation for the future. She had plans to expand the Foundation's programs, including partnerships with legal and psychological experts to provide more comprehensive support services. Back in New York, Sarah walked through Central Park, the setting sun casting long shadows on the path ahead. She thought about the uncertain journey she had embarked on, not knowing where it would lead but driven by a need to find truth and peace. Now, she was leading others on their paths to healing, her own wounds transformed into wellsprings of empathy and strength. Sarah's story had begun with a quest for personal healing, but it had blossomed into a larger mission, touching the lives of many. As she looked ahead, she knew that her work was far from done, but she was ready for whatever challenges and opportunities lay before her. In the quiet of the evening, as the city lights began to twinkle in the twilight, Sarah felt at peace. New York, the city of dreams, had lived up to its name in ways she had never expected. It was not just a place of personal success but a stage for profound personal transformation and renewal. As she left the park, Sarah's thoughts turned to the future, to the new dreams she would dream, and the new stories she would help to write. The journey was ongoing, but she was no longer adrift. She was anchored in her purpose, driven by her passion, and surrounded by a community that believed in the power of new beginnings. Years had passed since Sarah first embarked on her transformative journey, and now, as she stood on the balcony of her office overlooking the vibrant cityscape of New York, she reflected on the path that had led her to this moment. The New Dawn Foundation had flourished, becoming a respected resource and sanctuary for women facing personal crises. Sarah's own story, once a private pain, had become a public beacon of hope and resilience. The office was quiet in the early morning hours, the calm before the bustling day began. Sarah sipped her coffee, enjoying the solitude that gave her space to think. The city below was just waking up, its endless possibilities mirroring her own sense of renewed purpose. Throughout her journey, Sarah had learned that healing was not a destination but a continuous process of growth and discovery. Each woman who walked through the doors of the New Dawn Foundation brought her own story, her own pain, but also her own hope for renewal. Sarah had come to realize that her role was not just to guide these women but to grow alongside them, each story enriching her understanding and compassion. The foundation had expanded its reach, now offering workshops, support groups, and counseling services across the country. Sarah's vision of a supportive community had blossomed into a vast network of empowerment and healing. Her book, detailing her journey and the lessons learned along the way, had become a bestseller, inspiring others to seek their paths to recovery and self-discovery. As the sun rose higher, casting golden hues across the city, Sarah prepared for the day ahead. There were meetings to attend, programs to review, and new initiatives to plan. The work was never done, but Sarah approached each task with a passion fueled by her own experiences and the stories of those she helped. Later that day, as Sarah walked through the halls of the foundation, she paused to look at the photos lining the walls. Each picture told a story of a woman who had found strength and renewal through the foundation. Sarah felt a deep connection to each face, each story, a reminder of why she had started this journey. In the quiet moments between her responsibilities, Sarah often found herself reflecting on her personal growth. She had not only survived her ordeal but had used it to forge a path that helped others. Her relationship with Michael, once a source of profound pain, had evolved into a civil if distant, coexistence. Forgiveness had come slowly, and while the scars remained, they no longer defined her. As the day drew to a close, Sarah stood once again on her balcony, looking out over the city that had seen her at her worst and her best. The skyline was a silhouette against the setting sun, majestic and enduring. Sarah realized that her story was just one of many in the tapestry of human experience, each thread interwoven with moments of pain and triumph. Her journey had taught her that each ending was also a beginning, and every setback a setup for a comeback. With a smile, Sarah turned back to her office, energized by the challenges and opportunities that awaited her. The journey continued, and she was ready for whatever came next, armed with empathy, strengthened by her past, and driven by a desire to make a difference. In the heart of the city of dreams, Sarah had found her purpose, and in doing so, she had helped countless others find theirs. The future was bright, not just for her but for all those who shared in her vision of renewal and empowerment.